Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Maureen Droney with the Recording Academy, the membership organization behind the Grammy Awards, and I want to thank you for joining us today. My job at the Academy is to work with its producers and engineers wing, which is an Academy membership division comprised of about 6,000 members in the US and elsewhere who are actively working in the music industry as producers and or engineers. Today's program, The Forum, is part of an online series and just one of many programs, events, and initiatives the Academy has that support and service the members of this wing. Now, I'm excited to present today's program. We've rounded up, it's going to be three actually. We rounded up three of our industry's most experienced producer managers who have kindly agreed to speak with us today about their profession and to share some of the knowledge and experience that they've gained working in the production and engineering side of the music industry. Hosting today's session are two of the esteemed members of the P&E Wing, Jordan Hamlin in Nashville and Glenn Lorbiecki in Seattle. We will be taking questions, so put yours in the Zoom Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And now, please welcome Jordan Hamlin and Glenn Lorbiecki.
Hey everybody, Glenn coming in hot, just shredding with the guitar, ready to rock this morning.
You know, Candace always has the best playlist leading into this show, right? So Don Henley, Boys of Summer was playing. I could not resist. I just had to.
Can't help but get hyped. I understand. Nobody's holding you responsible here. I'm so excited to be, this is such a special group. I'm so excited we're together again.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
This is a good topic. This is these are very important advocates for this very community that we have here today.
You know, there are two jobs, I think, in our industry that are so incredibly mysterious to me. One is mastering engineer. It's like they do this voodoo thing that I don't understand.
Nobody knows.
And the other is producer managers. And so I was really looking forward to this today because I want to learn exactly what it is that these folks do that's so magical, if they will be so kind as to share with us.
That sounds perfect. Let's welcome them on. First, we have LA and Nashville-based Kelle Musgrave, who began her career by managing legendary studios Cherokee and Devonshire. She spent a few years at Epitaph Records and then went on to handle songwriters and producers at Network Music Group. In 2014, she founded Linear Management, where she began working with renowned mixer Bob Clearmountain and then up-and-coming producer Colin Britton, among others. Since then, Kelle has developed a unique and diverse roster of clients that includes over 50 Grammy-winning multi-platinum music producers, songwriters, and mixers. Welcome, Kelle.
Next on the list is Henley Jr. Regisford, a music business veteran in multiple areas of the entertainment industry, from music publishing, AR executive, music supervisor, artist and producer manager, to president and partner of a major label, record label and management film entertainment company. Junior manages super producer Red One, Andre Merritt, PK, and legendary writer-producer Richard Rudolph. He's also worked with a huge number of multi-platinum superstars, including Lady Gaga, Jennifer Lopez, Nicki Minaj, Saweetie, BB Rexa, In One Direction, French Montana, Enrique Iglesias, Christina Aguilera, Sounds of Blackness, Mint Condition, and Ice Cube, Sting, Corrupt, and numerous global dance DJs. Frankly, I'm exhausted just reading the resume. Welcome, Junior.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Glad to have you. And I also want to acknowledge Jeremiah Grabber had a last-minute family emergency and won't be joining us today, but I would say check out everyone that's on with us today. Check out their bio and what they do, because everybody's kind of amazing.
Jordan, would you like to round us out, please?
Oh, I'm happy to. Sure. Bring it home. Joe D'Ambrosio is a longtime veteran of the entertainment industry who heads his own talent management company, Joe D'Ambrosio Management, Inc. He is also a partner in Audiosmith, the audio production company of the Dumena Center in New York City that records original Broadway cast album and film scores. And I was told this is just a tip of the iceberg, and He was also a New York Yankees bat boy. It's his first job. So just a little color for your bio today. Excited to have you guys with us.
Hey,
Hello.
Shall we dive right in?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's do it.
Ask
Well,
the
I mean, I feel like, shall we take it from this giant job and the mystery behind it, starting to pull the curtain back a little bit? How would you all define your jobs?
who wants to go first?
Okay. It's a great question. I'll start. It's really sort of you kind of have to be, I'm going to say, the LeBron of the business because you have to kind of do everything. You are, number one, you're really a partner with your clients, producers, songwriters, engineers. You're kind of a partner with them because you're helping them build a business, expand, create, and stretch the limits of their creativity. And you are really scheming and planning and plotting with them on what they want to achieve. And then you're putting a timeline and executing a sort of agenda to try to achieve those long-term goals. But I view myself as a partner with every client. And then you have to learn each client and what is the best situation for him or her to succeed. You know, whether the session needs specific things or don't need the type of artist that they like to work with. You have to find what, you know, is the right environment for each of them to succeed and tailor your plan with them to achieve their goals and set it up that they get to operate in that space. And then you fill in all the gaps. You are the person that can do all of the things and execute things on levels of which, you know, some of them have the bandwidth to do and some of them don't. But you fill in the gaps for each one, and each one is a unique plan for each client. So I would sum it up that way. You're a lawyer, you're a friend, you're a confidant, you're a business partner, you're all these things and in different ways for each client. So I would sum it up that way.
Lots of hats, right?
Yes, yes.
I would say definitely like help to find a career path is one of the number ones. And then being a detective, marketing, looking for work is a lot of it. Handling all business, counseling, juggling, prioritizing, you know, what they want.
One
And
said
everyone's personality is very different. And you do have to tailor what you do to that.
You kind of
Joey.
said it all. There's also protecting. We are barraged with opportunities for clients that we represent. And oftentimes you need to suss out what's going to work, what's not going to work, what's absurd. I have a few very high profile clients who get asked every day to do things. And I pretty much know what they will do and will not do, but I have a golden rule to ask everyone all the time, is this something you want to do? Because the minute you think you know them perfectly, they say yes to doing something you never think they'd want to do. And I
Right?
don't specifically producing. It could be a TV show. It could be a book deal. It could be advising for a film. You learn every day on the job, you learn.
That's a great point. You never know. I've learned that.
Never know.
Well, that's a good segue, Joe. That leads us to what does the average day look like for you folks? I mean, I know Joe's flying today, so I know what his day is, but I mean, the average day, I mean, what sort of calls do you field? What's it look like for you?
I have to say it's very fast paced. You know, so a lot of the information comes from email. And probably the next step is to get on a call to feel it out. You know, I don't like to do everything 100% via email because you don't get the tone of the conversation and it could just come across wrong. You know, you might scare somebody by quoting a particular price and they're too embarrassed to write back, you know, or maybe there's money on the table and you could have gotten more. And sometimes you can get that, you can hear that in the voice and in the conversation. And so I find that it's important to speak to.
Kelly's point, I try not to quote in writing.
Yeah.
I like to get on the phone. I like to understand what people need, want, what I think they have. What I find out is what they have or don't have. And if they don't have it, I actually say, don't spend money you don't have, which is probably not the greatest advice, but why? And people have come back to me years later and said, you're the guy that said, don't do it now. I have it now. I want to work with you.
It's
Yeah.
a build. What all of us do, Junior, Kelly, all of us do is build relationships. It's not just for this job, it's for the jobs.
100%. You guys are nailing it, because we're probably in the minority in the business that we still like to talk to people. Like, I have to get on the phone. I have to do a Zoom. I need to see you. I like to meet you because you have to feel out the situation and it's really organic. You kind of trusting your gut and your ability to communicate with people, because if you do and respond to everything blindly on emails and putting stuff in words, there's no nuance. You don't get a feel for really what they have an appetite for and what they don't, what's going to work for your client. So I'll reconfirm what both of you said. Is really most of the day is spending speaking to people, like
Yeah.
real people, either meeting or speaking to folks, because that's how you get a real take on what's possible, what's going to work for your client, and what's going to work for them. You got to feel that out, and you can never really do that on text and email.
Completely true.
Yeah.
This is already such a rich conversation, and it also occurs to me the role of a producer and the hats that even a producer wears at this moment in music history maybe is there's a lot of hats, there's a lot of roles and gaps that you're filling in, whether it's developing the artist or it's just all a jumble right now, and in great ways and challenging ways.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
what would
changing all the time too. It's always evolving. People change their mind. They produce for a long time and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to mix. And then they do that for a period of time and they're like, oh, I want to go back to producing. But you got to be prepared.
Yeah.
They're humans.
Yeah, constantly adapting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is-
And
Go ahead.
I was going to say, given what's going on online, and when I say that, especially in the producer writer space, the access that independent artists have now to independent producers and tracks and music available online at no money, little money. There are a lot more producers available. Even known artists are going online and getting stuff off of SoundCloud and dealing with. So the level of competition is grown, and it's kind of watered down the sort of role a little bit
Yeah.
with the producers. Obviously, if you still have some A-list producers, they matter. And then obviously with AI coming in. So there's more options for that independent artist to try to find access to music. So you're still having to kind of navigate that and being able to maintain the value of your A-list clients.
Do you also find that the artists more often lately than not are wanting to be the co-producer?
So interesting you
And-
said that.
And then not just for vanity purposes, but also because they want to produce other artists. And so, further crowded right there.
Yeah, that is the trend. That is the trend, because there are so many technological advances that assist the up and coming producer to be able to, create. But that person may only know how to program. So you're getting tracks now that are released with 6 producers on it, because
Mhm.
this one did the track and he sent it to someone to add a guitar, and that one sent it to someone to add horns. And so everyone has sort of a little bit of expertise, but not really full compensating musician that can produce a full track. You have 5, 6 producers now on a track, so you're getting this sort of collaborative thing happening that, some people are producers and some are not full producers. They're musicians, but they're getting the credit. So all of that is getting involved. So that trickles down to the artist as well. They are making contributions and they want that title as well. So yes, that's definitely happening.
But who is the arbiter of who is really a producer?
Yeah.
You've got the producer.
Yeah,
Guitar player plays a lick, he wants to be a producer.
correct.
Kid who brought in a bag of weed, he wants to be a producer. Who, seriously,
Yeah.
who in that group? I guess it's the artist, but who really
Yeah.
does that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Kelly?
it's such a broad term now. It really is. I mean, you're right. People, the main producer will bring in some of their people from their team. There's some superstar producers that some of our producer songwriters work with, and they'll tap them to just add a little production. It's usually they're sending files, and then, it'll grow into something more. And the good thing is some of the bigger producers are really team players and they want that person to grow, and they get
Yes.
that not only are they looking for production credit, obviously, they want that, but they, a little bit of royalty, a little taste of a fee is good. For me, I try to get them into the writing space. I really want, cuts, and people have been more open to that lately, because that gets you in the path of more writing sessions. And it just seems like that's where the productions are coming from. The artists are sent out to go write with, people. And a lot of those people are teams of writer producers. And so now you have all these producers, getting an opportunity to produce the record, or the song or the record or whatever. But it's really the new meeting. Back like 10 years ago, you'd have like an artist fly out to meet the producer, and now it's just the, artist is coming to town and writing, whether it's Los Angeles, New York, or Nashville. And those writing sessions, you're hitting it off. And then now you're in a conversation about producing the song or the record.
Yeah.
And so I always tell everybody, try to figure out how to get into a writing session. If you're a producer, if you're an engineer, or you were once a musician, try to pick up an instrument, try to figure out how you can contribute to a writing session. And then you can even get a publishing deal from that. Someone else is helping you get another session and another production.
All right. Yeah, I'll add to that you're dead on, because with the emergence of other independent producers online and SoundCloud, et cetera, a lot of the focus has shifted to songwriting, actually crafting the song in these sessions. In LA, all the producers out here have their small production rooms, or all the sessions going on all over the place, and labels actually flying their clients to music places like Nashville, like New York, like LA, where the sessions are happening. So the idea now is that you create the song, you write the song, you collaborate with the artist, and out of that does come production. So the
Yeah.
producers are doing the sessions. You're 100% right. That is the trend
Yeah.
now.
And that's how you're getting work. And you have
That's
to
right.
accept that, and you've got to change with the business.
Yes.
You can't just sit on your laurels and hope the phone rings.
Yep.
Doesn't happen.
So there's an interesting comment in the chat. I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, but Ellis Sorkin said anybody who wants to call themselves as a producer is a producer nowadays. But we realize that the producer title can run the gamut from a Phil Ramone type person who gets involved in what the artist has for breakfast, all the way to someone who's making beats and they sell their beats as a producer. So someone has to be the arbiter of credits in all of these negotiations and all of these discussions. Is that something that you folks will do? I mean, is it, someone, you're representing one of the producers among a team. Do you negotiate for specific credits for your people that you represent, or are you trying to represent everybody and divide up the roles?
It depends on the genre, right?
Yeah.
Depends on the situation as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say I tend to favor producers that are musicians, because no matter what trend is happening, no matter how things are evolving, a musician can evolve with the time, the sound. It's all notes, it's all chords, and they're able to sustain trends, etc. So I tend to want to be the one representing my producer that helps lock in what the credits are. Have my producer songwriter be the lead in it, and whoever they bring in, we're creating credits around it and finding out roles, and they're defined up front. The
Sure.
more you are upfront with people at the beginning, the easier the sessions are, the easier it is to finalize what the credits are going to be. Obviously, there's some nuance, but doing things after the fact, figuring out later when people weren't clear what their role was in the beginning, that can create, a little bit of disorganization and some hurt feelings. And
Yeah.
so try to be upfront and be clear. This is the producer, you're coming in to do X, or you can be the co-producer. The more you can do that upfront, the easier it is at the end, collecting credits and finalizing, whose roles and who did what.
It's so true. And to that point, it's tough when you're bringing in musicians who also are producers, and you've got to be real upfront. I'm bringing you in not to write, but to play. And then
Yes.
that's real gray, you know what I mean? So it depends on the level of the musician, and as a producer. And because I've had some, producers get brought in to just play some guitar, but they were able to negotiate like a cut and a production from that, just because they were higher level in the field. But that exact same role that they played, like the same guitar part, would have just been considered a small guitar part. They would have gotten a few $100 to do that and called it a day. It's subjective, and
Yes.
it's a business of relationships, and you have to recognize that. It's all focused on making the right friends and keeping them. And don't burn down a relationship that's a path to a huge roster of other artists. You know what I mean? There are some people I've worked with over the years that wanted to go to battle over something so small, and you're like, don't do that, because you're going to destroy access to everyone they work with. It's not worth it. Or is it? Depends on who the
Mhm.
artist is.
Yeah. I
I've experienced that before where I'm like, we're fighting over pennies here, right? We're having
Right?
a discussion and wasting our time over something that's ROI is low. And in talking about what a producer is, this is such a something I think about all the time. And we're kind of in this moment where if it means everything, at some point it means nothing. And we have to just come up with different language about how we describe what you bring to the table and what your interest and passion and gifts and connections have aligned to, like, this is what I'm good at doing. And I think managers are like that too, about like what they're particularly great at bringing to the table. What would you say are the most important parts of your job from your perspective?
Joe?
In regards to calls for producers specifically,
I mean, probably like in the producer and engineer world, particularly what we're talking about. But if there are tie-ins, like I imagine that we talked about like protecting the producer. That's definitely something I've, um,
protecting all of them.
yeah, totally. It's not neutral out there.
You're running interference. You really are.
You're
No
running
one wants to be
interference.
talking. No, nobody wants to be sitting in a session sitting next to the artist while you're talking to their team, because they've gone wildly over and you need more money.
I don't know the beginning for Junior and Kelly, but when I started, it was always the worry of the clients that I was courting. I wonder how Joe's going to represent me. I wonder how Joe's going to represent me. I wonder how this is going to work out. And how it works out is how you treat people. And you have to treat people well all the time. And if you're lucky to have as long a career as I've had, you continue to treat people well and your reputation grows. And they know if they're going to call Kelly, Junior, myself, you're going to get the right service. You're going to get the truth.
Yeah.
Someone calls for a really big client of mine and I want this person. I have to watch what I say. And I might have to say, well, that's not the guy to do your electro pop speed metal record, because he did something great with X. There are other people who do that. And that's probably no client wants to hear that, but no one is everything. Everyone has a specialty. Everyone has a way to do their things, and they excel at that. So yes, sometimes we have to guide clients to the right choice, and oftentimes it works well. And the representative of the artist will come back to me and say, "Wow, you made a little change in direction, and boy, did that work out."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to do that. It's the only way to represent people properly. You can't stuff clients down their throat, because all we have is our name and our integrity. They're interwoven, and you have to always stay on top of that. You have to.
Yeah. Yeah. Great points, Joe. Number one, when you're dealing with a client, one, I would say pick and choose clients you really truly believe in. Have some discernment. Don't view yourself as an agent where, you want to have as many clients and throw as many things as, personal management is a different style. It's a more personal, and that client needs to feel that you believe in him or her. They need to feel that, number one. And then two, you have to protect them. Number three, you have to hear from them what they want to achieve. Let them help lead what their vision is, and now you help them achieve that with a plan and a timeline and protection. And then thirdly, the most important thing, which both Joe and Kelly has said, is really our number one thing, to be honest, is relationships. Protecting those relationships, honoring those relationships, being good to people. There are times, your client may want you to be a pit bull and do this, but at the end of the day, you take that from your client, make them believe you're obviously going to do that for them, but you still have to manage how you speak to folks on the other side.
So
and
true. So
and
true.
and then weave that, get the message delivered,
Yeah.
but you still maintain that relationship, because the one person one day may be an A&R assistant, 3 days later, three years later, he's head of the department or she's head of the, you never know. So you
Yeah.
must
Happen.
maintain your relationships is key, because at the end of the day, that's why the client wants you as a manager, because you can open some doors, you can create opportunities, you can put their music and their talents in front of people. You can't do that if you don't maintain relationships with the people that are viewed as evil or hard to deal. You got to deal with everyone, and you have to deal with them in the same manner, with grace and being gracious, being polite, and treating them right.
No,
And,
you're right. You
you
can't be
know,
that person that people don't want to get on the phone with or don't want to
yeah,
talk to,
yeah.
because they say you've soured.
You,
You have to get over it, and you have to be gracious. Even if
yes,
it's killing you and someone's been really bad to you, they're going to be in another role that you're
yeah,
going to need. It's inevitable. Like the
yes,
assistants, moving up and controlling a project. You got to face the fact that it's going to happen,
yes.
and just, you shouldn't have an ego. You can't have an ego
Can't
as a
have an ego.
manager, you know.
That's reserved for our clients.
That's right. That's
And you
right.
try to get them to not have a bigger ego than the artist.
That's right.
That's a whole job in itself.
What do you want? Everything?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I hope for it.
Well, so that's an interesting question too. What if you are working with somebody who's super hot at the moment? What if your client was, I'm going to throw a name out there, Phineas, for example, and everybody in the world is banging on the Phineas door, and you have to, are you the filter for that sort of a client? Or you've already explained that you have to follow their direction, and what they want to do is what you're going to try to make come true. But how do you deal with that with somebody who is absolutely au courant of the moment?
You have to prioritize. You have to have enough instincts to know what makes sense. You can't throw everything. If someone's that flooded, you are handling traffic basically.
Yeah.
And so you have to, this is why you're the manager. You have to just put your thinking cap on, as my mother would say, and figure it out. And yeah, you're gonna tell them the majority of things, but if it's insane, then no.
Well, and it's a great deal of common sense and industry experience that meld works. If you can keep your ego out of it, realize what's smart for the client, what makes sense for the client, what's he or she got on her plate at the time. It's not impossible to figure out. Phineas is a great example.
Yeah. Air traffic control, that's your gig. And you have to have discernment, and you have to know your clients. So you're making choices, just like Kelly said, you're fielding, opportunities at that point. So which ones are you really going to put in front of your client that makes sense? Obviously, you let them know everything. You let them know everything, because if they hear later, oh, well, this person called, how come you didn't tell me about X, Y,
Oh,
Z?
yeah.
You still have to let them know everything that happens. And these creatives, they remember everything. You think they don't. They store it, 3 weeks later, they may bring up, well, you know what, I do remember blah, 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 blah. So you have to be very transparent with your clients, but help them and lead them to the right decisions for themselves. You have to help them make the right decisions for themselves. is what you
Yeah,
have to
sometimes
do.
it's time management, right? And
Yes.
or
Yeah.
getting them to get an assistant or bring in
Yeah.
an editor. Stop getting so like focused and realize that your skills aren't best used editing your
Correct.
project.
Right.
An assistant can be doing this and maybe just for this project. Don't freak out about the budget. And
Yeah.
it can happen here. And
Yeah.
that's what you're using your senses for.
Yeah.
So, quick follow-up question to that. If you do have somebody who's overbooked, does this present an opportunity for you to maybe introduce an artist to somebody else on your roster or somebody who you think might be a better fit? You've each mentioned something about, trying to match the client to the producer. Is that an opportunity here?
Well,
You got to be real.
That's
go ahead, Joe.
touchy.
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
To Junior and Kelly's point, it's really touchy.
Yeah.
Just recently, I had a certain client pass on something, and I had to think long and hard, should I introduce it to another client? Because client A might not take that the right way. And I want to hear Kelly and Junior's reaction. But the only time I'm allowed to have an ego is when I have to feed my family. So I said, do I just let this go out? Or do I talk about a different person I represent? I'm being so careful not to say names that let me see how that works with that. I got the A&R guy on the phone. My favorite thing is I want everybody to talk. Transparency is paramount in every situation, no mystery. And it worked out.
Yeah.
It worked out really well. So Kelly, Junior, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's very touchy subject. We have multiple clients, but each client feels like and wants us to be their only client. So we have to find a way to make sure that we're attentive to them in that way. And they are watching if they feel like an opportunity is coming the door through them, did it go to someone else? So either there's been two ways I've been able to deal with that. One is if someone's bandwidth has gotten really, limited with the opportunities, they can't manage them all. I've helped them build a team where they have producers and young writers that work under them, but they understand their model, how they produce, so they can help create the same sort of sound. They supervise now. So instead of you're getting this person's team, but their team delivers that, and it's still under the moniker of their production entity. So we've had to do that to expand their ability to meet the demand. And then two is having, just like Joe said, there's a few times where, we've had both producers and, ideally that one producer didn't want to do the project. It's a great project. And he ended up being okay with this other client doing it, but it had to be put out in the open. So later on, they were like, well, that came in for me. Why did that person do that? You can't have that sort of dynamic.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I will say something. Like, if this is a hard pass, you hate the project, are you cool with me maybe throwing some ideas out there? And usually I'll just get the green light. And you're right, I also have producers that want to executive producers produce the up and coming people under them. Engineers are turning into producers and that's kind of cool too. But it's a case by case situation. I've had people ask for one person, then go on the website and ask me about other people. And then, my fingerprints are off it. I didn't, do anything really
Because
overtly.
as managers, all we do is get blamed.
That's right.
Yeah, you're trying not to be at the bottom of the chain.
We don't get a lot of credit, but we get a hell
No
of a lot.
credit, no credit, all the blame.
All the
And
blame.
you know
Right.
what? No ego about it. We understand that's the game. But yes, that is
Yeah.
that is
You're not
the
getting
job.
calls at midnight saying, boy, that was a great job you did today, Joe. Jesus, can we do that
Never.
again?
Yeah.
Do you ever get mentioned in the post? No.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, we're thankful for you. You're a very important part of the ecosystem.
Love it.
There's an interesting one in the Q&A. I'm gonna do a little answer live. It says, what is your metric used to quote producer rates for independent artists versus artists signed to majors? How do you get the best rate for your producer to elevate their career for the next project quote? And maybe we should also, I don't know if the answer is the same, but I know there's like mixing engineers and recording engineers in here as well.
Yeah. Never open the bidding, that's number one. You don't want to leave money on the table. I don't have a metric. And that's why what I said is getting on the phone. We all tend to want to get on the phone. You've got to just feel out. Sometimes if there's not a label in the picture, there's more money, honestly, because some of the people aren't as savvy that are out there in the wilderness, with a huge backer. And like maybe the A&R knows what all the producers are charging and they're trying to nickel and dime and mixers too. So sometimes you're better off getting higher rates independently.
Do you start, Kelly, with a number, or do you start with what's your budget?
I used to do that. I used to quote rates years ago. And then I realized that, and now since almost everything is independent, it's all switched. Now I sort of do the what's your budget, and it's a dance. They want to know what you want to charge, you want to know what the budget is, and you're doing that dance around that number. And it's not a direct
Same
equation.
here.
Yeah.
Same here. I used to start with a number, and I see as the economic exchange of our business, you really have to say, what's your budget?
Yeah, because it's coming from all over the place. So you
All
can't
over
do
the
what we
place.
used to do. Oh, this band is with this A&R. This is what they have. It's just no, not like that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I would concur. I ask, what is the budget? And again, this is why we like to get on the phone and talk to people and feel it out. You've got to get an idea of where they're playing. I don't quote numbers up front. Some independent artists really are paying out their pocket, but the guiding premise at the beginning is how enthused is my client about working with this artist? It could be an artist signed at an indie label, it could be signed at a major. If they really want to do it, then I'm willing to work with the client, the artist on what their budget is. Because a couple of my clients, they'll do it for no money if they love it. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
money, but low money. If they really love
Yeah,
it, it's
yeah.
creative, right?
Exactly.
We'll make it work. Other ones are,
Well,
yeah, this would be great to do.
yeah,
So I have to find out what is their budget? What's the arena they're playing in? Like you said, Kelly, some in the independent arts have like large backers.
yeah,
They have people funding their projects and they have plenty of money, more than you would make at a major. So you have
yeah.
to feel that out,
Yeah,
and
and
then figure out.
sometimes if the client, like you said, really does want to do it, you have to try to figure out a way to make it more equitable.
Yes.
And there's where you come in, and if you think it's going to sell, you might get a more favorable royalty. Or I've got a handful of mixers I've gotten publishing, which I thought was pretty funny, but people are open to that.
Yeah.
The publisher will go, why aren't they getting a writing credit? Why can't I find that? I'm like, because they didn't write.
Hmm.
We just got a little bit more money, on that side. We got them publishing, basically 10%, but they only mixed the project because there was just no fund. So it's fun to just come up with little ideas.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a lot of different roles in production. I hear you naming writers, I hear you naming performers, producers, engineers. Are any of your and Kelly, I know that the answer to this for you is yes, I have clients who do all of those things. But do you ever have clients who just specialize in one thing? Like this person is just a mixer, that person is just a producer, or these specific roles.
Yeah, I have a couple clients that just only want to mix, and they've only done that for years. They're well known for just mixing. I have clients who've come up as engineers who've tried a little bit of production, don't really want to be making beats, and just want to mix. So they'll do little engineering here and there. I don't really sign engineers per se, because you can't get them work. They have to be aligned with the producer. But in the event that they don't want to handle the billing, I will do that. But if they have a vision of becoming a producer, um, or mixing, you know,
Same.
yeah. But most
Yeah.
producers these days are mixing. Honestly, that's some of the challenges we face is people are combining roles. Like the producers are mixing, so the producers that used to send work to our mixers now are just doing it themselves. And so that's a little bit of a head scratcher. You can't begrudge them that. A lot of times lately, some of the mixers have been asked to master, which I thought, what are you talking about? They said, yeah, we went ahead and mastered it. And
Yeah.
I'm, well, okay, that's like a whole new subculture.
Yeah.
That
That's
I don't know if
happening a
it's
lot.
emerging. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's just, I don't know what to make of it. I've only just started noticing that.
Not a big
It's
fan.
Yeah,
at all.
that is happening with
Yeah.
our
And I
clients as
tell my
well.
clients that not a big, first of all, I love all the mastering guys. They're all my friends. They do what they do spectacularly. As Glenn, you so aptly described it. We don't know what's going on, but boy, do they know what's going on. And just to top it off and tell somebody you mastered it or run it through a plugin and go and get lunch, that's not mastering. That's getting lunch.
Yeah.
That is happening a lot.
A lot.
They have these programs and these softwares now that producers are saying, "Oh, you don't need to master," and that is happening. And a lot of independent artists are putting out music themselves, and they're fine with that. So, yeah, and it's a
Just a
cost.
lower
Yeah,
standard,
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, that is happening.
Well, if you're
raised to the
dedicating your life
bottom.
to music and you settle for lower standards, what does that tell you? You
That's
know,
Well,
true.
I guess
So are you representing mastering engineers as well?
used
I'm
to.
not. Are you, Joe?
No, I'm
I had
not.
someone for a couple of years. It was a lot of jobs that I made not enough money to buy a pack of cigarettes, and I don't smoke. Um, so it didn't make a lot of sense to continue down that road. But I've been asked. I love mastering engineers. I think they're all extremely bright, extremely talented. They have a mystery job, and at the end, it sounds amazing.
It does. It does.
Quick story. When I worked for Phil Ramone, who put me in business 44 years ago to work with him, we would go down to see Ted or Greg Calby at Sterling Sound. And I said, okay, what are we going to do? He says, we're going to go get lunch. I said, what do you mean we're going to go get lunch? Sterling buys their clients the nicest lunch. So we would sit outside and have lunch. And when it was over 3 or 4 or 5 hours later, we'd go in and listen. You didn't go through the process. You heard the final result. And Billy Joel records, Paul Simon records, for me, it was, wow, these guys are great. But Phil didn't sit in and say, louder trumpet, louder keyboard. No, we had lunch. Amazing. So, needless to say, I don't go to mastering sessions anymore. I don't need lunch, but I need a great mastering job on a record. And there are great guys all over the world, all over the States, all over Canada. We're really blessed to have them. So, it doesn't deserve a plug-in after you meticulously made a song. It deserves
Yeah, I
to
agree.
do the mastering.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just this refined quality and sort of that finishing touch that just really makes the project just blossom. It's frequencies, it's levels.
Yep.
You know, if you've got three different mixers turned in 3 or 4 songs differently, they make it all even out when you listen to an album. You're not hearing the difference of frequency and what hurts this one user compared to the other. They're able to make it all sound like one piece of content that's telling a story.
Yeah.
It's but most people don't really know what that is.
Yeah.
They just hear the finished product. But when you hear the different mixes from the different producers and engineers, you hear how they ended up pulling it all together and creating this one thing. It's a beautiful thing, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend, having the mixer master, but I
Yeah.
try not to get my nose too involved,
Yeah. And then we've changed so much to a single driven process now where artists, getting to an album takes a while. So there's a lot of singles. So you'll get the one producer that'll master because you're just putting the single out and you keep putting out singles till someone they feel like they have enough demand to put an album out. Then you may get to someone trying to maybe master an album. But the single game is what's allowed the independent producer to become the mastering engineer because you're just putting out a single and there's a lot more singles. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love giving some love to the mastering engineers as I do. Just because you can't explain their job doesn't mean you can't feel the difference and tell the difference.
Yeah, can embrace it.
Great.
Somebody was asking about the income streams for producers right now.
Mixer fees for sure. Producer mixer fees. I would say the number one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
So
that people would normally think about too.
producer fees, right?
Royalties, producer
Royalties. If producers usually get writer's share on a song, some will make a deal where they just get a fee and it produce the record, but most of them are getting writer's share. So you got, writers and publishing income, you got
Yeah.
producer fees, you got sound exchange income as well, because they're performers, whether they programmed, played in guitar, you got sound exchange income as well, which equates to neighboring rights overseas.
Junior, are you
Every
saying,
every artist should sign up for Sound Exchange.
Yeah.
oh,
We do.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Junior, are you saying that producers get, say it again, do producers get writer's share,
Writer's share
even
of
The
if
the
they didn't
producer
song.
write?
writers, yeah.
So most, like I said, my clients that I manage, I tend to like to get musicians. So they're usually in on the writing part aspect of it. So most of my projects, I'm getting the producer in the room with the artist and they're writing together. They're coming up with the songs together. And I like to keep it that way so that they stay in the writer's share of the
Got
song
it.
in addition to the producer fees.
Yeah, so you're getting the cut income
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
But there's no reason to not go after that passive income.
Correct.
That's why we're always like trying to sign producers who write.
Yes.
Because it's just double the money. You're going to retire on your publishing income.
Correct.
Something blows up, you're not that popular anymore. You're getting older and you're just still getting the money.
Correct.
I think we're going to go to Q&A here pretty quick, but I have one question because it's one of my pet subjects that I'd love to ask you folks. What do you have an opinion about the current state of immersive mixes and how that's being handled in the industry? And do you folks specifically like try to target those projects or?
Um,
I'm
why,
sorry. What did you say?
what's going on with immersive mixing?
No, I'm totally.
He's messing with me, Joe's
I'm messing with you. What's going on? We do a lot of them. They used to pay a lot.
Are you doing catalog stuff?
We do catalog stuff,
Yeah.
our frontline mixers. We get asked by the labels, by the independents, if we're going to put the song out on Friday, we need a Dolby Atmos mix to come out at the same time. The price we used to charge is no longer the price we charge. It's different across the board. Major labels still allow us to charge something formidable. European labels allow us to charge money for lunch. And they claim, and one of the presidents is a good friend of mine. He says, Joe, I could never do Dolby Atmos mixes with your guys because we get them here for 300 pounds. And that's nowhere near what we need to do a Dolby Atmos mix. That's an insult. So I maintain the friendship, but I deny the work.
Joe, do you find it's leveled off a little bit? I think that I've noticed that.
Leveled off is in demand or pay scale?
Price.
Price scale has leveled off a
Yeah.
lot. Demand has leveled off a lot. Because original mixers like Bob, I'm assuming are doing their Dolby Atmos for what they've mixed originally, which makes sense, which was the prerequisite when this first started. Everyone wanted the original mixer. And as having a lot of veteran guys who did a lot of incredible records over the years, jobs come up, and I know the people who give out the jobs, and I say, I can't mention names, such and such did that massive hit for such and such. We'd like to do the Dolby Atmos. Well, somebody had their neighbor's kid do it.
Yeah, or there's a
You have-
guy in the building, in the labels building,
Yeah.
who has a little office there, and he'll do it for chump change.
And
And
it,
that's
and it
happening
sounds
a
like a
lot.
squeaky wheel on an old bike. And
Yeah.
they don't know why it's horrible. And then the artist hears it a year later and says, who did this?
And the artist now has to pay for it. That's what I'm saying.
Correct.
Yeah, they're
Correct.
falling apart over how bad it is, and the label's just not going to pay for it twice, even though they didn't pay barely anything.
Right. But one thing about money we got to say, because it's the greatest thing in the world, when I argue with A&Rs and they say, Joe, we just don't have it. And then I forward the email I got every third Friday that the three majors have making record profits. You don't have what? There's no argument. The money's there.
Yeah.
That's why we need you all out there defending the front lines. This is amazing. Should we take some questions? One that is kind of mentioned in a couple are, how do you know, does everyone need a manager out there? How do you know when it's time? Is there, I have too much work coming in? Is it, what would you recommend for when to know that personally and how to find one? And I promise we're all not going to email you afterwards.
Ladies and
Oh.
gentlemen.
Joe,
Come on, Kelly, jump in, Kelly.
I gotta go.
No, I mean,
Joking.
I said this at a conference the other night. The thing I never used to ask in the beginning of my career is the thing I ask first now because everybody said to me, why don't you start with that? I have to ask someone, what are you making a year? What did you make last year? What did you make the last 3 years? And see if the percentage that I would earn makes enough for me to represent them, makes enough sense for my full attention detail, 40 years in the business, understanding how it works, understanding who to call at A&R admin if you can't get paid. Just don't be fooled. One of the biggest jobs Kelly and Junior and I have is getting you paid. And it's not the biggest job. I don't like when clients say, oh, Joe's great, he gets me paid. Finds work, builds your brand, sends out press releases, get you contacts, introduce you to artists, introduce you to producers. Yeah, we get you paid. We have to. But we also do all the other marketing, as Kelly said earlier. And I lost my place on the question.
How would someone
So
know
I
if they
got
need a
it.
manager?
I got it. How much do you earn? Then what do you do to market yourself? And most times I get a blank stare. Bob doesn't have to market himself. Iconic. Tony Visconti doesn't have to market himself. Iconic. Red One doesn't have to market himself. Iconic. But many others, most do and most don't. That makes sense?
100%. 100%.
And if I get a blank stare, I know I'm in trouble because my job just 50 more pounds are on my shoulders. But if someone's out there, wants to meet people, does have contacts, has a little base of a career, that's a great jumping off point. If you're earning $30,000 and we have a meeting, we shouldn't be having a meeting, which happened to me about 6 years ago when a mastering guy I represented said, you have to meet this great Latin mixer, come up to Mamaroneck, come up to the office, great guy, wonderful personality, and said he makes 30,000 a year. And I said, I can't take any commission from you. In fact, I should give you a loan. How are you feeding your children? And he is great, a great mixer, but the economics he couldn't understand. And I can't speak for your clients, but I could speak for some of mine, some that I've had in the past who are no longer clients, is that they don't understand the economics of their value, of their worth, how to ask for money, how to negotiate. People tell me, get tough, Joe, crush them. No, that's the movies. That's The Godfather. That's in the movies. That's not in real life. Treat people superbly, and you'll get close to what you want or need. Don't choke anyone. That's baloney.
That's right.
Edit. That's bull.
Going back to the list of questions, there's a lot of questions now, and I'm going to combine a couple of these because they're mainly budget related. Stuff like, how do I get paid? And I thought Kelly did a really great job of explaining the dance, the negotiation dance. But if you're getting to the point where your career is taking off, at what point do you try to get a producer manager interested, and what do you charge? I mean, how do you decide what is the appropriate scale?
So the first phase is all of what Joe said. Like, where are you in the arc of earning, and where are you in the arc of what relationships have you created yourself? You know, are there a pool of A&Rs that come to you, or artists that you work with, that creates a sort of momentum for yourself, of which now that you've got movement, you may not have the bandwidth to manage and deal with on your own. You know, the one thing I do like about producers, you know, as opposed to managing artists, producers tend to have a little bit of sense of what the business is about, more so than artists. You have to do everything. Producers will have an inkling, and some have more than others. Some have an inkling to wanting to develop artists. Some have an inkling to wanting to place hits on songs. Some have the ability to do both. You know, you have to figure out, you know, what they do best. But it has to be at a place where you have some momentum. You can't be looking at a manager to come save you. You have to be, you know, marketing yourself, working yourself, making connections and relationships yourself. Now, like I said before, a manager is more like a partner. Now you bring in a partner to help you accelerate what you're doing, handle more things, where you can do more of what you do, more time to be in the studio, less time on the phone, talking to people, negotiating, getting credits done, negotiating your fees. And now you don't have to be the bad guy saying no to this number and that number. When the artist and the client shows up, they love being with you. They're not having to have that business conversation. Your partner now, your manager is doing that for you. So it really depends on your arc, where you are. Have you developed relationships? Have you have a slew of writer, producers, A&Rs that you work with? And then are you getting a place where you are having a problem handling it all on your own?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm good
Yes.
aligned with that. I'm more about if you have in your space a couple of A&Rs that think that can really help their projects and they want to start going to you, or a superstar producer, that you're coming up under and you're getting some cuts under, and they've got a bunch of stuff, and I like to develop people that I know already have a big foot in the door. Um, but I really wouldn't be tasked at bringing someone to the next level. If someone thinks that, they're just going to be disappointed. You don't know how people are going to respond, when you pitch your producer. So you can't just think that that's the reason you want a manager. It's got to be because you want them to handle your business and put you in the path of sessions, but it has to make sense. You have to be, your credits have to make sense. No.
Yeah.
And to your point, Junior, about money, we have a hard and fast rule, and I can't speak for either of you, Kelly or Junior, but my clients are not really supposed to talk about money. That's when we first agree to work together. That's my job. This is what I do really well. I didn't go to school for this. I learned this. I don't know how I learned it. I guess Phil Ramone helped me, but I understand negotiation and how to get you what I believe your worth is. By you sending a quote out there, devalues my job, it devalues you. When you're in a studio and the artist looks over at you, he needs to see a musical note, not a dollar sign.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
It's a
I've had people tell me, boy, I'm looking at this guy, we're making the record, and all I think of is how much he cost the label.
That's right.
He has to be divorced from that. He is
Mhm.
seen, or she is seen, as the musical entity. We are
Yeah.
the
Right.
good guys, we are the bad guys.
Yeah, they don't know the rate, they don't know the schedule.
Hmm.
That's got to be the mantra.
That's right.
This is awesome. But talking about the producers, having a little bit of insight and headway on the business side of it sometimes, are there things that you make sure or suggest to your clients to have in place? On the, crediting would be the intake side, and then maybe things like sound exchange, or, what are you saying? Are you registered in these places? What are some things that you could suggest some people on this call today make sure they have in place?
They have to be registered with Sound Exchange, as I'm sure Kelly and Junior's clients are, as are ours. It's imperative. It may be pennies on the dollar, but it still adds up. Sometimes it adds up really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If a song is streaming madly, you're getting them. We got our checks 2 days ago, as you guys probably did, and
Yeah.
it's the greatest surprise. It's
Mhm.
wonderful.
I think the artist has to sign up that you're working with.
Yeah,
I don't think that you as a producer can just register. I think you have to be on a project, that's registered. And then I've had that pushback from Sound Exchange. And then once there's something that you're associated with
I
as
think
just,
that's exactly right.
then they'll accept your information, and, because it's a service for the artist, not for the producer. They're doing an artist a favor by directing their income to you. So you just have to understand how it works.
Yeah, I would add Sound Exchange, and then because a lot of the producers I work with, I get them involved in the writing session. You need to be associated with ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC.
Yeah.
This way your copyrights are registered. That's grassroots level. You must get affiliated on both those levels out the gate.
Yeah, I think like 5 years can go by. If you don't have any affiliation, your income is collected, but it just goes into a black hole.
It goes in,
So
yeah.
if you let that amount of time go by where you don't have like an admin deal with a publisher or somebody that's looking after your writing side of things and your performance side, you're never gonna see that money.
Yeah.
I have a current topic that I'd like to put in front of you folks, and that's AI. Now, I have to confess, I grew up in a farm community in the 70s. AI to me means artificial insemination. But I think we're talking about something different here. And I'm curious to see what you folks do with the creative process, with your clients as regards AI content. Do you have a philosophy about that? How do you deal with it?
So, for me, I keep it couched as a tool. And the issue obviously is if you're managing artists, you know, are any entities out there, using your name and likeness and your voice, etc. So far for us, with the producers and writers I have, it has been a tool to help them finish songs, demos, help them in the creative process. And when I say that, if I have a writer, we're about to do meetings and we're shopping songs, you know, sh 6 female songs, 4 male songs. He or she can sing the songs and use the AI tool to create a female vocal for demo purposes. Things like that help in sort of uh, adding resources to their production output.
Yeah, it's
That's
great
as
demos.
that's as far as we've gone and we're using it for, and it's been very helpful there. And it actually helps speed up getting demos done, these sorts of things, showing, well, this is going to sound like X, and you can run it through AI and you get a male vocal, female vocal
Yeah,
without having the singer, if you can't book the singer quick enough. So that's as far as we've gone with it.
yeah,
It's been so far a great tool in that area for us.
yeah. Just keep it in your demo, and there's no
Yes,
hassle.
that's right.
I'm curious what has changed for you all whenever you first started, and feel free to say a little bit about how you first got into this job as well. But what do you notice that has been the biggest change? And maybe even what I always imagine wherever we're going, we should take the best of all the times. So what do you think is like this is still true, but this is really different? Does anything come up for you in that question?
I think meetings are different now because, like I said before, what's changed is sometimes you don't know if you're going to be producing a song until after you've worked on it for a minute. So sometimes you're not knowing what the deal is at all until the song is close to being finished. You really have to sort of figure out how much you're going to work on a song. And depending on who is backing it, is it a label? It's so it's so undefined, really, the compensation side of it. So the meetings have changed. They're now mostly sessions, songwriting sessions. And it used to be that you'd have a budget approved up front. You kind of knew what they had to spend for the entire record, including mastering, way in advance, before the artist even came to meet. And now, it's just a lot of times one song at a time. You're working with the artist to build up, the singles.
If I could do the
Um,
praise hands emoji for
yeah.
that. Yes, holding that liminal space of like, I've been working on this for a long time and I don't even know if it's going to exist.
Yeah. And how
I'm
much more do you work on it? Like, you got to decide, and that's everyone talking. Is it worth it?
I'm holding that value for you on your project. You're delaying having to pay, but you
Yeah.
get something. It's
Well,
really
you're investing. You have to decide it's an investment in your interning, to some degree, if you're developing that side of your career, but you are investing in an artist, and you have to decide how you feel about it. And then as that grows, how you feel about the songs you're creating, is this worth it? And that comes back to time management and making sense of it. And that's why, we're talking to our producers every day. So how much more time are you spending on this? Let's pivot. Here's something else. There's always the calendar and the schedule is never carved in stone. If you think it is, it's just not. It's a moving target. And there's always something from somebody, great, a new opportunity that you've got to now stop and work in. And then at the same time, you're dealing with all the people that you already have on the calendar and their deadlines, and you've got to honor that. And you have to figure out a way to make it all work, without it being too much. And it's got to make sense financially at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I would add, what hasn't changed is what makes a great song. The creative process of getting into the studio, working with an artist, finding a great, canvas or muse to work with, coming up with amazing melodies, telling stories, and really being able to amplify someone's inner voice and bringing it out. Like, the process of creating is still the same. It's a different way they do it. You know, you sending files, it's less sessions in here, in-person sessions, but those are still the best. So I would say the quality of the music and songs, that's still the same. What's changed is who the clients are. It's not just record labels anymore. It's tech companies, it's commercials, it's licensing, it's this brand deal you're doing a song for. It's these independent artists that out of the creative community that need records. So you're dealing with a bunch of different sort of clients instead of just all the labels of which it used to be. And a lot of it is, like Kelly said, you're doing it for spec at the beginning. You're creating the stuff first, where we used to be able to get fees up front before you go into the studio to work with everyone. Now you create the song and you wait to see if it's accepted and if it's going to come out. It's a waiting game now. So I would say that's the difference. Who the clients are, and obviously you're doing your work up front a lot more and waiting to see if it's going to be accepted and come out.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of work coming from like A24 and Netflix, a lot of soundtrack stuff,
Yes.
film scoring stuff. I'm seeing a lot of the producers doing a lot of scoring and
Scoring, film, TV licensing.
Yeah.
It's a lot more clients in that space now. I kind of view that as the new business, is really the licensing space
Sure.
for outlets of music, for music.
You want to add to that, Joe, and take us home with that?
Not as good as that. What's
Okay.
changed? Finding revenue in different places than we
Yeah.
normally do. I'm speaking of producers and mixers, book deals, more work for film, as Kelly said, more work for television. Speaking engagements, believe it or not, are blossoming once again. Thank you, God. It's European opportunities. It's stretching. I was on the phone with Kazakhstan yesterday, no joke, for an opportunity for a big record. They come from all over and they come constantly. As Kelly said, it's, to paraphrase you, it's a barrage. I don't know the exact word you used when you start your day. It's everything hits you at once.
Yeah.
Why do I love what I do? I love what I do because every day's different. It's not quite the circus, but it's a little bit more than the sideshow. It's a lot of fun.
This was extraordinary. You all were so in depth and so generous with sharing your daily work and your planning and all the things that go on in your job, which has so many aspects. And you're all so good at it. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks for
Thank
having us.
you.
Thank you.
Lots of things to think about and lots of great information. And a lot of general great information. So, yeah. So everybody who's online watching, thank you so much. If you want to give us suggestions for future episodes of the forum, it's pe.wing@grammy.com. So like producers and engineers, pe.wing@grammy.com to send your ideas, because this is an ongoing series, and it really came about because of things our members were asking us to get more information about. So you are those people, and if you have ideas for the next forums, let us know. People on the panel, it's going to go dark when we shut off, and you've got another place to come meet us if you have a few minutes to talk afterwards. But other than that, goodbye, everybody. Thank you, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.